Welcome to Could Be Pretty Cool News, the podcast where we dive into the exciting world of creative entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Casey, and together we'll embark on a journey to explore this dynamic ecosystem from multiple angles, including academia, research and data, community building, and compelling personal narratives from creative entrepreneurs themselves. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered as we uncover the stories and strategies behind building successful creative ventures. It's time to discover why the world of creative entrepreneurship could be pretty cool. Welcome to a special edition of Could Be Pretty Cool News. On today's episode, we'll take you inside day one of Metrics Mingling, a data-powered event for Metro Atlanta's creative entrepreneurs. Day one of Metrics Mingling was held at the Lola Women's Co-working Space, and this gathering served as the base camp for the 2024 Truist Foundation Fellowship, powered by the Watson Institute, on Thursday, May 16th. Together, we witnessed a convergence of minds and talents featuring a panel of distinguished guests, interactive data collection, and audience participation. Our focus: the challenges and triumphs of women professionals in the industry. This wasn't just a meeting of minds, it was a celebration of stories, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of women who are driving innovation and change. So sit back, relax, and let us take you on a journey through the insights and inspirations from Metrics Mingling, Day 1. Right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I know some of you may be thinking, like, what is here and what is this? And that is valid. So my name is Casey Lou Waiters, and I am the founding producer of Could Be Pretty Cool, which is an audio production company that specializes in crafting experiences about arts and culture to bring together communities in unique ways. And to tell you a little bit more about how we started and what we are, so December 1st, 2019, sitting at my older sister's dining room table, I decided I was gonna start a business, but I didn't actually know what that business was going to be. I was like, whatever it is, it could be pretty cool. And that's how it happened. I had a full-time gig at the time and was like, oh, it just makes sense. I'll try to do business. So the first thing that I did under Could Be Pretty Cool is I did a panel discussion called the ATL Indie Theater Panel and Mixer. And I had all of my theater friends. That's where I've cut my teeth here in Atlanta. About 10 indie companies who came, and the goal was to kickstart this big push in 2020 to get people out to indie live theater.
Dun, dun, dun.
Thank you.
Perfect timing.
What happened, what ended up happening was all the theaters and most of all the other things shut down. And through a series of bizarro events that I can chat with y'all about later, we turned into a podcast company, and that's what we've been doing ever since. Though that desire to bring together indie artists, indie creators, indie creative entrepreneurs to figure out, yes, how can we all support each other? How can we build sustainable pathways to eating food and living indoors every day? That's still something that has always been like at the forefront. Like, how can I do that? So this year, the company was selected to be a part of the Truist Foundation Fellowship, powered by the Watson Institute. And y'all gotta clap. Yeah, so that's like mostly why we're here. This was like a requirement for the fellowship, but I'm so happy that y'all are here. And so what the fellowship does, it promotes Georgia-based businesses who have a component of trying to encourage career growth and economic development for a particular population. And so my fellow cohort mates, they're doing amazing stuff for the kids and for refugee and immigrant populations. Amazing, amazing. Yes, this is the point and the goal, right? Lived experience as a data point. A lot of times we think data, so we just need the numbers and make the chart. qualitative data. Hearing the stories of people who are doing this stuff is also data, and that is what we are here to capture with your help.
True data.
Yes, I love it. We can get started. Okay, so here is what I'm going to need you to do. You can look at your phones.
Oh, yeah.
And on your phones, you will see this question here. In your opinion, what is the biggest barrier to success for women entrepreneurs? So what you're gonna do, the options are at the bottom. You touch it, hold it, and you can drag in order of what you think or what you would prefer for our panel to talk about today. And so once you hit submit, we're gonna start seeing those, there we go, those answers populating in real time. So we'll give it a minute, and then
The poor people who are listening to this later.
I know we're gonna have to do some boop, 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 boop,
Yep.
boop. And then
What are they looking at?
First place, access to funding.
Okay.
Second place.
Okay.
It's like a race.
The answer choices that our guests were selecting from were A, access to funding and financial resources, B, balancing business and personal life, and C, overcoming gender bias and stereotypes. Okay, so in the room today, it looks like we want to talk about funding and financial resources. So this is great. We have Casey, who is, I guess you're technically not a solopreneur, but you were a multifaceted solopreneur for a while, and now you do have staff. Mm-hmm. We have Michelle, who you are a whole entity of media company-ness.
Yeah.
Yes, and then
We're
we
an escort,
have
too.
Sarah, who is a nonprofit. Mm-hmm. So how does money work in all of your worlds?
It doesn't. It doesn't.
It's hard.
Sarah, I would love to hear your answer.
So,
Or not. It's all good.
So guys, I wrote notes because I wanted to make sure I said what I wanted to say. Luckily, I guess in the nonprofit space, there are about 70% of the leaders in the space are women. So when I'm going through and I'm searching for me, what are grants, I find a lot of them are catered to women, but it seems like in terms of nonprofits and businesses, it's very hard to find those that are catered to women in nonprofits, and it's usually just like the business side, or they might do both. I would like to see in that space a lot more that are catered to specific groups rather than just women business owners in a group, because everybody is so different. Everybody's doing something. It's a lot of people that do the same thing, but it's a lot of people that are doing something very unique. And I find a lot of times, like, I'm not qualified to do any of this. I don't have, and that comes down to like financials. It's a lot of stuff that I don't have to necessarily worry about because I'm a nonprofit. So that's not something that I would actually have in my financials, my documents, anything like that. Sometimes it's hard finding stuff that's specifically for nonprofits unless I go to the same groups that I go to every year. So it would be helpful if it was a broader range of resources available out there, different people. The amount of research I have to do just to find a very small amount of those people is a lot. And it's hard sometimes because I feel like I'm wasting time filling out different grants and things of that nature. I wish there could be more funding in that aspect. And I don't know how it is for people that it's a for-profit business, but it's very frustrating with a nonprofit just trying to apply for grants because it's, for me, like I said, I don't feel like it's catered to nonprofits. It's usually catered to regular businesses. And if I had a business that I could use to fund my nonprofit, then that would be like a totally different story. But I don't have that. So it's a lot of extra work that I have to do. So I would say just making more available for people in nonprofits and just cater it to the different types that are out there would be helpful.
I learned a lot about funding. I've learned a lot about funding through FRQNCY, through a for-profit business and a service-based for-profit business. I didn't seek funding. I just started working with clients. We were really lucky to be able to work with a big client. Coca-Cola was one of our first. And it was a very different dynamic back then. I started almost 6 years ago. The money just flowed with podcast production with these big brands. They just were like, sure, whatever, take this bunch of money. And I was like, nice. And so we were able to scale up pretty quickly. And that was able to, we then took the funding, the profit from those projects, and I was able to start developing. Recordical has been in development for 2 years or 3 years. Actually, it came to me in a meditation in January 2020. By 21, I had started actually developing the concept. And then 22 was full R&D mode, lots of money spent on that. And that was basically taking the profit from the business. I was always quite indignant about bringing on investors or any kind of outside funding. I just wanted to do it myself. I'm a first generation American, I'm Latina. It's ingrained in my mentality. There's something quite prideful about that, which I now see as a weakness, quite a weakness. And I think that there's a balance between knowing where you can do it yourself and not jumping in too soon to find outside funding, because timing is everything about when you bring on funding, and also knowing when you need that support and help. So we, in 23, end of 22, secured an SBA loan for Recordical. And it is a $350,000 loan that we secured from the SBA. It took 10 months of rigorous financial review by the bank, rigorous financial review by the Small Business Association. And for us to secure that kind of a sizable loan, you have to have a pretty proven and vetted business model. So that was like, I won't say a full MBA, but it felt like an MBA in the process. Going through financial documents was the worst thing in the world for me. I'm a Virgo and pretty pragmatic in certain areas, and we had to just guess how much we'd sell. I'd be like, what do you think? And I'd be like, I don't know. You have to think, you have to make up a number. Be conservative, but be realistic, but also hopeful. And I'd be like, help me. So we did it. Thank God. I did hire a fractional CFO and a fractional financial department. And that was a huge lesson learned because I spent way too much money on them. But during that time, it was actually critical. I have a lot of financial lessons, y'all. One of them is that SBA loans are not incredibly favorable. They are not incredibly favorable. I thought because they were government backed, they would be to help small businesses thrive, but they're not very favorable. And now I find myself recovering from that financial blow that was last year and being ready again to push Recordical into the forefront and starting to now say, well, let me maybe seek investors and let me try grants and winning competitions and challenges or submitting to win them. And I'm like, man, I should have done that. I should have gone there first. But shoulda, woulda, coulda, and everything happens for a reason, because what ended up happening last year for us is we got that SBA loan, and then the entire podcast industry last year, big companies were literally failing right and left. The work dried up. So it actually carried us through and helped us survive to the very bitter end. Everything happens for a reason. So I will cap off this roller coaster ride of random manic advice with just follow your gut. Your gut is your guiding compass, and it's going to tell you, it's going to compel you to do certain things that may not make sense at the time. But now I understand why all of that unfolded. And I'm also even more prepared than ever before to even speak with investors, because I know what going through financial projections and pro formas is, and I can speak to them. So that's a little bit about the funding journey. I actually chose overcoming gender bias and stereotypes, which I think is this is a very personal question, and it's every bit of your experience goes into it. Mine is being in a male-dominated industry and having been pretty attacked by men throughout the course of my 6 years. The funding was there. SBA was like, sure, here's $350,000. The investors, the way I'm questioned about things is because I'm underestimated as a woman.
That's real. That's real. And we'll do some little audience popcorn, and if anyone else wanted to say anything about any of the other choices, but Casey, you
Yeah.
probably have some interesting money talk.
I don't. The cool thing about what I do is that I take pictures for people and then they give me money. That's basically been how my business is run for the last 10 years. Is that sustainable? No. Am I learning that now as the mother of a 1-year-old? Yes. So Casey had mentioned earlier that I just in the last 2 years have brought on a team. So I now have a social media manager and I have an assistant / co-shooter, and I have not secured funding to pay them yet. I pay them with my income from the business, and I don't pay them anywhere close to what they deserve, but we're getting there. But I have not had these problems yet because for so long, I lived in, and still partially live in whatever you do, that's what you'll get paid, and you better just make it work. Because I am a for-profit business, it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, let me go try to secure grants. Because I'm in the art world, a lot of my nonprofit clients are obviously collecting grants and things like that, but I'm like, oh no, I'm a for-profit. If people want to give me money, they can just give me money. So like when I graduated college, I had saved all of the money I had earned. And so when I graduated college, I had $25,000 in a checking account, no student loan debt. And I was like, okay, make it work. I used that money to float me, and I just hoped that enough people would hook me up with jobs to make it work. Funding is weird. I don't have a lot to say on that. However, close second up here is the balance of work and life, which over the last year has been very difficult. As I've mentioned, I have a 1-year-old. As an artist, I've always been an artist. It's been really difficult to switch from being completely self-sufficient and also self-centered a little bit. Me and my husband just like living our lives and getting through COVID and getting married and buying a house, and then oops, here's a baby who we love and adore and was planned, but I didn't realize what a wreck it would make of me. Like when I discovered that I was pregnant, I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to go to work and then people are going to judge me or not accommodate me and my needs? That did not happen. Everybody was very excited and very accommodating. Even now that he's here, he comes to shoots with me sometimes. My clients are rock stars because they're all in the arts, and most of them are also bringing their children because they can't afford childcare, which is a big thing that we're now struggling with at the moment. The balance of work and life has been like my biggest issue, I think, in terms of my business, is that childcare is just completely unaffordable. Can't do it. Sometimes he has to come with me. I can pay a babysitter, but that's $120 a day. So like, how do I make that work with a business that doesn't make that kind of overhead? So it's not just the financially balancing, but obviously the time, staying up until 1, 2, 3 in the morning editing photos for clients when my son wakes up at 7 a.m. and he's gonna go, and then I go to work at 6 and I come home at 11. How do we make that work? How is that fair? It's never a question, is my husband gonna take him to work? Of course not. My husband works a 9 to 5. Casey, you work at night. You can take care of the baby and then go to work. I'm working 14, 15-hour days. How do you make that work? How do you make it work? I don't know. I don't know. There's your answer. I do not have any help for funding. I think what Sara does is incredible.
You should call the SBA.
And I know, I don't know if I'd be able to pay it back. I'll take it for sure. But that's like, I feel like my help here. Like I can be the mom on the panel, happy to do that and be like, this is a nightmare. This is a nightmare.
We appreciate the realness. It's like we appreciate the realness. And if anyone else, I love how y'all are like, actually my choice would have been blah, blah, blah. If there's anyone else in the audience who had a different selection as their number one concern, or if you just wanted to say something about number one, I'm gonna Oprah this and hopefully not trip on things. So here's what's
Please don't trip.
just gonna take our time. See, you will be on the recording if you don't want to name names and say things.
Good prep.
Oh, maybe we can start with your name and like what you do.
My name is Manisha White, and I'm the owner and founder of White Labs Concierge Lab Services. So I'm in the healthcare industry, and I run a lab service. So it's mainly dominated by men. And so when they see me, I'm black and I'm a woman. So that surprises them a lot. But I know what I'm talking about. And it confuses them too. So then they always say, how did you know that information? I've been in the healthcare field for 27 years. And I just decided I was tired of the politics in the hospital. And I started my own business, and I've been doing that for 7 years. So the gender bias is really hard. I found someone who can talk better than me, who's a white male who's in his 40s.
Play the game.
And he's my mouthpiece.
That's not better, that's just different.
When I say he's good at the talking and getting those contracts, and then he comes out, here you go. And I pay him, and next thing I know, they be like, I thought I'm the owner. And
He's your Trojan horse.
Yes. So he gets me the money I need, because it's still run by older white men who run the industry with contracts. So it's
run the world.
hard getting those contracts when you see those old men up there. Because they're like, she's young and she's bringing spunk. Let's not do that. And they don't want to change. They want everything to run the same way. And it's hard. And that's been my biggest thing.
Yes. Because when I show up to a corporate event and people are like, you're the photographer? I'm like, I'm gonna need you to sit down. Because a lot of photography, luckily in the arts, I've kicked out most of the men. But men have a tendency to dominate photography because it's tech heavy, like healthcare, medical. And it's my favorite thing. When I walk into a room and I'm like, yeah, that's me. And I am able to break down exactly what's gonna happen and what's gonna occur. And I give them a product that they're like, wow. I'm like, come on, guys. Not very eloquent for a podcast, sorry. But I understand what you're saying, and it is really a challenge. But that's wonderful that you found somebody who you can Trojan horse to be like, look, just say what I want you to say in a fancy white man way.
I'm all about the Trojan horse, and you got to play the game in this patriarchal society.
Until
Men
we
call
break
the
it.
Shots. We are breaking it. The truth is, we are breaking it.
Yeah.
That's why they get more uncomfortable than ever before. Anybody see the Kansas City Chiefs guy at the commencement speech? They are quaking in their boots. He had to go up on stage and neg all the women in the audience because he's scared. So you know what? Keep Trojan horsing. And remember that when a man underestimates you, it's because he's underestimating himself and projecting it on you. He's terrified of you. That's your power. So.
Did anyone else want to, on this topic, we have, oh, please do, yes, and just please tell your name and then what you do.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I am one of those people who I've evolved in my career from being in-house in public relations and comms and marketing to the gamut, to having my own business, to being exhausted in my own business and saying, let me get back to a job where there's some infrastructure and I'm not holding up everything by myself. And so I've done that, and there's pros to that and there's cons to everything. But I think what's interesting for me about what I've heard everyone say so far is the nexus of the three of these things: the access to funding and financial resources, balancing business and personal life, overcoming gender bias and stereotypes, are all interconnected. And I was having this conversation recently with someone saying, there's this saying that it's Main Street and Wall Street. And I'm going, is it really? Because you're not supporting Main Street, you're not really supporting the small business. And I think having real honest conversations about what does it really take, especially as women who do in reality bear the brunt of the household responsibilities in many ways, family responsibilities in many ways, and what does that really look like, and what do those choices really look like? And if you have more access to funding and you can hire people who really, they came out of school, they know what they're doing, they have experience and expertise because you can afford to pay them, and then that means you have more time for balance, and that means you have more time to focus on getting on panels and doing thought leadership and helping to change those tides and stereotypes. It's all interconnected, and so sometimes I start to go, are we in the Matrix? Is it really,
Don't get me started.
Conversation? But nights like tonight, I think, really fuel all of our alignment to what we're doing and our purpose in what we're doing, and knowing that we're not alone and that we are winning. And we're thriving, and we can continue to. So, yeah,
Fingers
just
crossed.
to
Fingers
everyone
crossed
here.
on that.
Yeah.
That's real. The idea of, there have been so many times that I'm like, man, I wish I could just be satisfied with a normal 9-to-5 job, and then I could go home and do whatever I wanted. There's so many days. Because, like, I grew up with a lot of people who did that. People I went to high school with who just became dental hygienists or whatever. No shade on dental hygiene. But that normal 9-to-5, they have their hobbies and they have their life, they have their time. There's a part of me that longs for that. But I know, we were talking earlier about finding your niche. And we are all only doing this because we know it's what we're good at and what it's meant to do. This is not easy. I think all of us would be like, nah, if I could be satisfied doing something else, then I would be doing that.
Honestly, I don't think any of it's easy.
No.
Because most of the people I know who work those 9 to 5s who have a lot more money up per year than
That's
I
true.
do as a salary
Yes.
are envy me in my position. And I just think we have to find the least amount of suffering. This is very Buddhist of me, but like life guarantees suffering. And I know that sounds depressing, but it's not. It's not. And I believed it before last year. So just what's the least amount of suffering? And once you find that, you also start realizing that joy is something you actually have to seek out. Because if life guarantees suffering, you have to seek out joy. And if it becomes your onus and your responsibility to seek out and find the joy and capture it, all of a sudden it's a more active exercise than just waiting for it to arrive. So that's what I'd say about that is there's so many, this matrix holds so many shades and so many varieties of experience. And when you only have the context of your unique experience, you only know what fits you, what doesn't fit you, what causes you pain, what causes you joy. So mostly the most crucial thing is to know yourself and feel yourself and hear yourself, your inner intuition.
It doesn't make it less hard, though. Like, I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm still like, geez.
Absolutely.
Why does it have to be at 11 p.m.?
Now you all are seeing oh, we have another hand. Go ahead. Yes, I'm gonna say y'all are seeing like the secret, my podcast secret. Step 1, find interesting people. Step 2, hit record. Walk away. I love it. We have other interactive polling things for y'all. This is question number 1. We got to get out of here at some point. We are going to keep it moving, get through as many as we can get through, because it is a whole weeknight, and this is fantastic. All right. Everybody got it? Everybody ready? Okay. Question number 2. What area should be prioritized for empowering women in the creative industries? Now, for our new folks, you will take your selection, code it down, and you can drag your ranking 1, 2, and 3 to the top, and then we'll see the rankings populate live. The answer choices that our guests were selecting from were A, mentorship programs and networking opportunities, B, workshops and educational resources, and C, greater representation in leadership roles.
I would just like to point out that Casey sent these to us ahead of time so that we could prepare. Sarah printed hers out and all of her answers. I wrote out thoughtful answers to all 3 of these questions, and I don't remember any of them.
You're doing great.
That's why I
It's
printed
like
mine out.
we didn't even
know it was coming.
There we go.
You're probably like, what?
So we have 3 different levels of preparation here today. So think about that while you're selecting your answers.
Clearly, you see what they are capable of. No matter what, you're going to get a good show.
We just wanted to sound smart.
Looks like we got about it. Well, yeah, it looks like we have a clear winner on this one. Our folks in the room think that mentorship programs, we got another, okay. Yep, still mentorship programs and networking opportunities should be prioritized. That's good, because that's what I did for this, to do networking or whatever. So for the 3 of you, again, you're in completely different spaces as far as like how your business is run and are set up. How have you either served as a mentor, received mentorship? Do y'all still go out to networking events to find clients and people? That's still a part of what you have to do. Talk to us about mentorship programs and networking. We can start again with Sara.
I hate to say it. I think I told one of you earlier, I do not like going to networking events. I am an introvert. I have an hour time slot that I do networking events. I think I just like things to happen more organically, like coming to the Lola and meeting new people, and that's networking to me, where I don't feel like I'm pressured to give a pitch. I hate giving pitches. That's one of the things that I hate doing as well. So it's just, I find it easier to just be more organic about those things. But as far as mentoring goes, I feel like with mentoring, not necessarily just taking somebody under your wing, but instilling in them that you want to leave the world in a better place than what you are seeing it as right now. So for me, I guess I started out doing different mentoring as a basketball coach, as a trainer. And one of the things that I try to tell the kids, like basically over 20 years, I'm teaching you how to do things better. When you go out there and you become my age and you start doing the same thing with kids, don't teach them the wrong thing. Like why would you do that in the first place? You're going to be watching things that you don't want to watch. You're going to get frustrated and irritated, but it's going to be your fault because you're the one out there not giving them the right information, not telling them how to be better people, how to be better teammates and things of that nature. And I think that also carries over into the art world as well, because you want to make sure that you treat people, of course, the way they want to be treated. You pay people what they're supposed to be paid. You give them the opportunities that they may not have elsewhere. And I think a lot of the time people feel like they get defensive really quickly because they've been treated so badly. Was, hey, you don't have to get treated that way all the time. This is what's supposed to happen. So when you get the opportunity, you get that money and your business blows up beyond whatever you can imagine, just do the same thing for the next person. And I think that's just important in anything in life, is whatever you're doing, whatever you're putting out there, even if you're working that 9 to 5, you're trying to make it the best it can be, pass along that information to the next person, and then they can develop it as well and make it better for the next person, and just trickle it down so it's not the same product, but it's always a better product and making it better for the people that actually consume it.
That's really smart, that idea of we are not the best that will ever do it, and we're not the best that have done it. Like, we're just a link in this chain. What we do is important, but it's not necessarily the only thing that's existing. So, like, of course, we have to, like, cherish and grow the people that are underneath us. That's really smart.
Yeah.
You're so smart, Sarah.
Thank you. She's so supportive. I've only known her 20 minutes.
I
love it.
Let's be clear. All three of these things are very important. But because y'all want to hear about mentorship because you voted and data points and all that jazz, I have just started, so in terms of like how I'm giving back, I've just started teaching with the Atlanta School of Photography. I think I've been there for 7-8 months now. And they offer private lessons, they offer mentorships. And until very recently, I'm definitely in imposter syndrome. What do I have to show anybody? My degree is not in photography. I don't know anything. But my first mentee was here last night, photographing an event here, and we were talking about it, and she was texting me while she was here, and she was like, what do I do? What do I do? And it's so rewarding. And the classes that I teach to college students about how to use their headshots to prepare for a professional acting career, they get so excited, and they just don't know the first step. And so I am so thankful that I get to teach them that first step, to get them to think creatively and get them to spark that like better career that they will have in the future. It's so exciting. And the private lessons too are just really incredible. Now, in terms of how I was given to, I worked for a woman for 7 years who was a photographer, a portrait family photographer, and I learned so much from her. And unfortunately, that relationship did not end the way that maybe I would have liked it to. Another strong, successful photographer in Atlanta, but having some time to process it, because we split during COVID, which I thought was going to be the end of me, but it ended up being like a really experience full of growth. Yeah, I was able to like release and do more than I ever thought I was able to. But I did need her. I did need her to show me like what was possible. And although it may not be like, oh, do exactly what I do or make sure you do it better than I do, it's, oh, I'm a different person, so I can see her mistakes or I can see her shortcomings in how she treats me or how she does X, Y, and Z. And I'm trying to do better by the people that I am bringing up underneath me, even though I don't feel like I should be bringing up anybody underneath me yet. But I definitely know that I am and I can. But it is a ladder. We have to cultivate the people underneath us, and we have to, because we only have so much time on this planet. I'm not going to be a photographer for 300 years. I have to show other people how to do it because I will not always be able to do it.
I think what you said about organic connections is so crucial with mentorship. Or I love like a structured environment, like a classroom that you can teach. I haven't quite done that yet, although I'm finding a new love of teaching. For me, I've had mentors and I have organically become very few people's mentors. And the one advice that I can give about, also I don't like networking events. We were talking about that. I don't,
Yet here we are.
I've learned to do it. I do think they're crucial. And I think it's all about alignment with both mentorship and networking, is finding groups that align with your energy, or else you're going to feel really uncomfortable because our gut will tell us, I don't belong here, I don't belong here, I don't belong here, in the way of this isn't my energy pond. And so when I find a good energy pond, and I'm feeling that tonight, and I'm not just saying that because I'm here, I just wouldn't say anything, frankly. I'm a person who's just, anyway, energy ponds. But I am finding it here, it will feel really good and fulfilling, and that's when it doesn't feel like networking, you know, that's when it feels like meeting amazing women or people and finding out about them, and oh my God, and I need to connect you with Monica or whatever. And so that's one thing I'll say. Networking is crucial, but it doesn't have to be excruciating. The other thing is, mentorship is not a, hi, nice to meet you, will you be my mentor? That's super awkward. It's not organic. It's not going to go well. Every mentor I've ever had organically became my mentor because, for instance, one big time mentor I had, I went and presented an investor pitch deck to her and she ripped it apart and I loved her for it. And I was like, you there? And she was like, you there? And we became friends. And just because she's lived more life than me and lived more entrepreneurial life than me, she and I became friends because we're both so direct. So she would just directly tell me, I don't like that you do that, and maybe you should do this. And I'd be like, I like that I do that, but actually that's a great point. And that's how I like to learn. So I found the mentors that work for me, or the advisors that work for me. And let me tell you something. I think that as you evolve, your mentors evolve. All of a sudden, I started seeing mentors as friends and equals. And then being like, I actually am now departing in terms of ethos from your ethos, right? So like a lot of my past mentors are highly capitalistic, highly, and would tell me not to talk about anti-capitalism or post-capitalism because I'd be, what's that called? It would be taboo to certain people I'd talk to. So at a certain point, you just can't, I think in this day and age, you can't put a lid on your truth anymore. You got to speak your truth, and that's how you find your people, right? So remember that mentorship also evolves with you, and that's okay. You don't have to be like indebted forever to people. You can just become their equals one day. That's actually really exciting. So right now, I see mentorship as very organic, and networking is quite crucial. And I can see how it impacted my business, that I was grounded by COVID and then became this little recluse because of it, and excited to get back out into the world because of it.
Amazing. I can definitely say about networking and peer mentors, everyone that I know eventually ends up on a microphone in some capacity at some point. So happy to expand that network, and you'll probably all be getting some emails from me at some point. Does anyone have anything they want to share about networking and mentorship? What I think we're going to do, we're going to skip to the last question, because that was 2 questions, y'all. We've been sitting here chitty-chatting, and that's amazing. And so we'll popcorn the last question so we can drink some more of this wine and talk to each other and do the gram pictures and all that sort of stuff. But did anyone have anything to add about the networking or mentorship piece?
I feel like there's a pre-step, because I think all of these are really important, right? But the networking and mentorship thing, there's like a step before that. I find that I was lucky enough to have a career counselor when I was in grad school, and she taught me a lot about what does it mean to network? What is the purpose? What is your goal? How do you approach people? Right? Even putting on this event, it's a lot of reaching out to sponsors, reaching out to people to partner. How do you do that? Like, how do you approach people? What is the etiquette behind that? I think that for a lot of us, especially those of us who are immigrants or from communities of color, we aren't necessarily taught these rules and how to play that game. I guess I'm wondering, can y'all speak to that? What are around this sort of mentorship thing, what is something that you would say as a pre-step to engaging in this, what is something that you would tell mentees about how to navigate that world?
It's a nice question there. I guess I would say, at least what I've found, and I don't know how good I am at networking, I've literally been learning basically the past 4 years just how to be better at it. I think, of course, the thing that you need to know is just knowing your business, knowing your passion, and knowing how to express it to people so that they can get the message that you want them to receive. I found at different times that, like, when I'm at networking events or different things like that, I'm passionate and I may not say the right words, but I'm thinking I'm doing okay, but they're not getting the clear picture, and they might get it later. But I found that as well, other people that are now having those problems that I'm seeing basically the same thing. It was somebody I met. She's from New York. She does training there, but she also is trying to come to Atlanta and do the same thing. But when she was speaking to someone, she kept talking about everything she's done in New York. And they're like, I don't know what it is, but people in Atlanta don't like people from New York for some reason. They look at them funny when they start speaking. I don't know what it is. And it wasn't that. And her work was great. You could tell she does great work with children. And it was just like, yeah, you do stuff in New York, but what do you want to do in Atlanta? And if I was just able to speak to her and say, hey, you can promote everything you've done, but maybe don't mention New York as much. Maybe just try to, in a way where it's saying, like, she could mention any location and it would have been, that's just speaking about what you did there. Maybe just cut that down a little bit and say, I've done this and I want to bring this here and I want to bring it to these areas so they know, okay, she's really trying to be invested in this community, even though I know she's like from somewhere else.
Just like more future oriented and past oriented. I don't want your resume. I want to know what you want to do.
Yes, because they want to know you have the experience, but they also want to know you're passionate about what you're going to do right now or in the future. And if you keep talking about something you've done elsewhere, that's great, but like maybe sprinkle that in and elongate the other stuff so it doesn't seem like you're just harping on everything you've done elsewhere and that's the greatest place in the world to be.
A good exercise for that is to practice that 30-second pitch and practice it on very critical people who will tell you, I don't understand what you're saying to me, or stop talking about New York. Like, you need truth tellers. So practice and refine, look in the mirror, and practice that 30-second pitch.
I think the only thing I would add, because this is great advice, is for people who are trying to connect with me, who maybe think that I'm better than them for some really dumb reason, I am approachable. And I think that I forget that. And I think that other people forget that. They like see my work and they're like, oh my gosh, she's great. And I'm like, I'm just a person. Like, you can talk to me. I'm just really passionate about what I do. And I have 10 years of experience. That's why like the photos aren't trash. But in terms of remembering that for myself, I reached out a couple years ago to Matthew Murphy, who does most of the Broadway photography. Because I do theater photography and he's Broadway. It's the pinnacle of theater. So I was like, let me reach out to this guy who I follow on Instagram and just see if he'll look at my stuff. I'm so nervous. He emailed me back, of course, because he's like a nice person and is also a business person. And he was like, yeah, your stuff's great. Let's chat. And I had to remember my own advice of people are approachable. And if they're not, then they won't respond to you and you don't want to hang out with them anyway. But especially when it comes to women, right? Or people in the arts specifically is who I generally deal with. They're much more approachable than I think they are. So if you know what you want to say or what your passions are and what you want to do next, like you approach those people and you say, hey, this is what I want to do. Any good? And they're probably going to be like, yes, because all of us are only sitting up here because like we're making connections. That's the only reason why. Mm-hmm. There are so many people out there in the world in this very room who are really talented and incredible and could be here too. But the only reason we're up here is because of the connections, because of the mentorship, because of the networking.
And to Casey's point, it reminds me of what I wanted to say in response to this. I have a friend, and I'm still learning to do this. I'm not good at this. She's the kind of person who asks just in case she gets a yes. And that is a superpower because I assume the no. And it stops me from asking things. And I've learned from her to assume the yes, which is what you just talked about. And so she will reach out to the wildest people asking for things. And
She probably gets a yes more than she thought she would ever
more
get
than
it.
any of us would ever think. And of course she gets ignored a ton. And I have a fear of rejection that I'm working through because I got a whole bunch of rejection last year.
Don't
So
we
now I'm
all?
like, wait a minute.
Don't we all?
I'm still alive. And that taught me a lot, is watching her move. And sometimes I'm like, you shouldn't ask for that much. But then she gets the connections and the yeses. So first step is assume yes. And what would you ask for if you assumed a yes? Get ready for rejection. It's going to happen. It's okay. And then the second thing is insert yourself. So like in a room, I did this earlier. I think Sarah was talking to, I don't get your name. You there. Kiana. And I just walked up and I was like, I'm going to join you guys. And I just stood there and listened to them have their conversation, and then I engaged in the conversation. That's actually something I learned in college because I got a degree in PR, and we would go to networking events almost like homework. And I learned to very awkwardly just walk up and that slow walk where you're just like,
Hey guys.
hi. It's horrible. It's awkward, but it gets you in the convo. That's another practical tip for networking.
Amazing, everyone. Okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna skip to question number 5. That was 2 of 5, and we're gonna make sure that you all get to vote. We might do some little like popcorny answers, little popcorn. In what way can the community most effectively support women entrepreneurs? And so this is going to be our final question that we vote on as an audience. Panelists will get maybe like a 1 to 2 minute answer. Audience, if y'all have any input to close this out, we'll do that. And then I have one more thing I need y'all to do, but it's real simple. And then we can do whatever after that.
Oh my God.
Look at this.
Oh,
look at this.
that.
The answers that our participants were selecting from were A, policy reforms for equal pay and opportunities, B, creating inclusive and diverse work environments, and C, encouraging entrepreneurship education from a young age.
Look at this. Is this a y'all would do the tie on the last one.
That's why this is going over, because
That's
we're really
right. No,
just
it's
touching on all of it.
So much. And this wasn't even, come on, tiebreaker. Who did that? All right.
It
So
was me.
look at you. Good job.
It's okay.
Fantastic. Want to make sure all the votes get to
Oh, I
get
know.
in. All right.
What did I vote for?
Okay.
I will just go ahead and kick this off because I am pissed. First, by advocating for women's business issues at the policy level, BT Dubs, May 21st, go vote. Election day. Yeah, if you haven't already voted. Yeah, early voting. I think it's closed or it's almost closed. So cool thing is I'm a photographer, if you didn't know. And we were not being charged sales tax in the state of Georgia. We could just charge you $400, come to your house, take some beautiful family photos, send you your files, be on our way. Apparently, according to my fantastic accountant, who is really on top of it because she lives in Idaho, was like, emailed me the other day and she was like, by the way, Georgia is going to start charging photographers sales tax.
It's a service business.
Like photographers are providing a product now, which is now we get charged sales tax. So I don't know when this is starting. I don't know when this is happening. But photography, specifically family and wedding photography, is a female dominated business. When I walk into a room, most people assume, they're like, oh, so how many weddings do you do? I'm like, cute. I don't do weddings and I don't do families. I hate them both, even though I've had both. What? The fact that I am now going to be charged sales tax is going to put my nonprofit clients in a bind because they have a very specific budget to bring me in or not bring me in. With this sales tax edition that I'm hoping is for 2025 and not retroactive on the entire year of 2024, that kind of stuff really, to be frank, screws us because we are going to have to pass that on to our clients or we're going to have to eat it. And the margins for sole proprietor photographers in Georgia specifically, just because that's where I live, that's going to put a lot of them out of business. That's going to be a huge expense. And obviously others who charge sales tax are like, get over it, get used to it. Sure. Huh? Absolutely. We will do what we have to do. We will survive. However, that kind of stuff is why voting is important, because obviously we can patronize women's businesses and things like that. But if they don't exist because these kinds of policies are being put into place, they're just not going to exist. Luckily, I think I'm in a place where I'm going to survive, but I don't know. I don't know if my clients are going to participate. They're nonprofits. They're theaters. They have very specific budgets. If they don't meet their gala goals and their donation goals, I don't go. And then they don't get marketing images, or they get marketing images that are bad. And then people don't go to the theater. Mm-hmm. It's a vicious circle downwards if we don't start supporting that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So just FYI, if your family photographer starts charging you sales tax, that's why.
Yeah. It's unreal. Yep.
I guess I'll go. I don't follow politics. I'm not a political person per se, but in everything I do, when I see an issue, if I want to learn more about it, I just do my own research. The only thing that I would say is if you want to learn more about these policies that are happening, or you want to know what policies exist, what don't, just do your own research in actual things that, not YouTube videos from people that have weird agendas and all that. Like some of those people are good to look at, but a lot of the time I just see conflicting information, and I don't have time to watch stuff that isn't actually true. I would rather know what the truth is and then just make a decision from there. And then you can form your own opinion. Use your platform to raise your voice, to tell people what you want them to hear or what's going on. And I think that's more important than everything, because like a lot of things that I don't know about, since I'm not political, I will hear about it and then I'll go do my research and find out more information. I think telling the actual facts of what things are, unbiased opinions on things, is way more important than just assuming or going and watching a video and then seeing what happens.
And you mentioned that earlier with that terrible commencement speech about women just being really
Yes.
the most satisfied with having children and staying at home, that you were like, I don't want to comment on that because I haven't seen the whole entire video. I don't want to take it out
things
of
I don't know yet. And at first glance, I was just like, what the hell is he talking about? First of all, it's a commencement speech. Why are you bringing this up at a commencement speech? But I think it was at like maybe a Christian college or something. So maybe the people in that audience would be people that agree with what he's saying. But also, again, I wouldn't bring this up in a commencement speech, because it's people, for me, I want to hear about graduating, doing great things, live things of that nature. But I guess maybe that's what that audience wanted to hear. I think it's important, again, to not look at clips, to listen to the whole thing, because maybe he was trying to say something, he said it incorrectly. He sounded well-spoken, but hey, I don't know. Yeah, but I think that's just super important, is to form your own opinions before you make judgment on what you want and what you don't want, because it is a lot of people out there that will try to fool you or try to give you the wrong info, and then something happens and you're like, I thought it was supposed to be this. And so you never want to regret going out and voting for something, and then you thought you're supposed to have you thought you were supposed to be voting for something else, or you thought it was supposed to go this way, and that's not how it worked out. But that's about all I could say on that, because I'm just not a political person. So maybe you guys have
This
more.
is actually why I voted for patronizing and promoting women-owned businesses, is because
Yeah.
we, in capitalism, we can vote with our wallets. We can take funding away and we can reroute funding. So we actually, you don't need to be up on the issues. It overwhelms me to be up on the issues, because there's so much that is overwhelming. And so I like to vote with my wallet and with my votes. I do vote.
Yes.
both are very important.
With my ballot and my wallet.
Yeah.
So that is one thing. I will say about 95% roughly of the decision makers who ended up hiring us from these mega corporations were women. So that's impactful. That allowed me to fully employ full-time 6 people and carry a team, including those 6 people, of 23 dedicated contractors. So that's incredibly impactful. We can make those decisions to support women-owned businesses or LGBT businesses, basically minority-owned businesses, I like to say, because that helps us shift the power structure. I'm also not one to, for instance, I don't, and I know this is controversial given where we are, but I don't like spaces that carve out that only are for women, because we actually need to be in the faces of men, and we need them to get used to us having a seat at the table. We need them to get used to us having power and voice and say as their equals or superiors, whatever. So that's what I'll say on that.
Big facts, big facts. Thank you. Thank you so much. No, we keep it real. We keep it real. Does anyone in the audience quickly have anything to, okay, yes, we have, and yes, I don't think we have chatted with you yet. So if you could say your name and what you do and all that stuff.
Hi, my name is Savannah, and at some point during the year, it is National Love Your Lawyer Day. Hey. So if you don't know about an upcoming policy or something, I swear it is worth it. Lawyers are normally bored, so if you have a creative project, like I love working with creatives whenever I get the opportunity. It's really fulfilling, and it breaks
Savannah,
up
are
the
you a
monotony.
lawyer?
Yes.
Okay. Or do you just really love lawyers?
I was drawn to the law because it was something where I saw that men and women could be equal. But I have dealt with so many times where I walk in a room and people think I'm the secretary or the paralegal.
Oh, no.
And so I have to go in with my highest heels and my nicest blazer and my strongest resting bitch face to establish. Oh yeah, and then I bring a very large roller cart of binders and I say, I've read everything about you. Are you ready?
Get it.
Exactly.
Quaking in their boots.
Exactly. And so that's what gives me the confidence to look at a man who's been in the field for 27 years, because it's been normal for men to be attorneys for the longest time. And that's what makes us equal. And it's profoundly fulfilling.
The fact that you have to do more work and he just has to be him, that makes you equal.
Exactly. And that's truly the point.
And not even most of the time, yeah, to him especially.
Oh yeah, he gets to throw spaghetti at a wall, and then I have to really bring it in order to prove that I deserve to be there. That is the sickening part, but it is only because of the women that have come before me and have decided, I will help you avoid the mistakes that I have made without being, because that's the thing. I have learned, I think true feminism is not expecting that of all women. Because not all women want to be your mentor.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
some of the worst clients I've ever worked for have been women. Because there are a couple that are just like, I've earned my place. I'm at the head of this organization, so I get to be a complete butthead. Yeah. I'm like, whoa.
Well, that's indoctrinated misogyny in my opinion, but sorry.
We're interrupting. We're so sorry.
It is.
I've
it
learned
totally is.
so much about not speaking out of turn these days. I have. It's important. I'm a yapper.
We all have talking sticks, so it just makes sense.
Talking stick.
But actually, I think that's it. That was my plugs. If you want to know about a topic, or if you want to lobby, lawyers also do a lot of lobbying. If you can crowdfund enough money, we can get it done.
Let's chat.
Something else, and actually probably the only reason I asked for the mic. When it comes to the healing arts or the creative arts, that is a female-dominated space, and it is the unsuspected regulations that tie you up. And like in healthcare, there are so many different licenses that you have to have, so
And
many
nonprofits.
and so many different staffing levels that you have to maintain, and you don't know until you get hit with a lawsuit all the mistakes you've made along the way that can devastate your business or even end it. And in the beginning, you can have all the heart and all the passion, but it's worth the due diligence to make sure that you're in the lines.
I think that's so powerful, because also there are certain things that knowledge is power and that we can weaponize. And the knowledge and having lawyers and accountants on our side are one of those. Having a good accountant to help you structure your business in a way that makes you the most money and allows you to then propel your business forward is power. A lot of people, but especially men, know the loopholes of certain systems that allow them to propel themselves forward like rocket ships.
Because that information is passed down, but it's not passed down to us because there aren't women to pass it down, luckily you've got these women behind you who are like, let me show you these mistakes so that you don't look like an idiot like I did.
And
Amazing.
one thing I wanted to say now, indoctrinated misogyny versus feminism, like you were talking about, some of the worst managers that I have had were women because they were indoctrinated into that. They were told, you have to remember that older women were told there's only room for one of you. And so they were brought up to see other women as threats to their success. So those are usually going to be the Gen X and Boomer generations that I'm talking about, because they had to fight so hard to survive as women. So a lot of grace and I give them a lot of props. I also remove myself from their lives. But I do understand what that must have been like. What I hear when you talked about feminism, that's actually a really big point, because feminism doesn't mean being like me, railing against the patriarchy all the time. It means just being a woman and being allowed to exist in whatever version of womanhood you want to exist in, and having the full freedom and empowerment to do. I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that's, I think, where people miss it, as if we all need to be all ragey like me. We don't. You can chill. I'll just be ragey.
With that, ending on a little rage, righteous rage, I think is a great stopping point. So this was like a million times better than I could have ever expected. So thank you for putting on pants and leaving your house and coming here to do this, because that's really helpful.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Until next time, we encourage you to continue nurturing your process. Farewell, and may all of your creative endeavors flourish. Could Be Pretty Cool News is a Could Be Pretty Cool original production that was workshopped as a part of the 2023 Google News Initiative Pre-Launch Lab. This episode was edited by Trinity Jackson. Audio engineering by Boone. Event photography by Josh Gaffney. Our executive producer and host is Casey Willis, and our production coordinator is Liz Moore. The original theme music was composed by Camille Stennis, and our cover art was designed by Aaliyah Johnson. Special thanks to our guests. To find out more about them, you can visit our newsletter at couldbeprettycoolnews.substack.com. Thank you for listening.